everyone, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're coming back for another video, it's really great to see you again. Today we're going to be talking about tropes. I haven't done a video about tropes in quite some time, and today I wanted to focus on tropes that I want to see more of.
I would like to see it.
Which are also my favorite tropes of all time. I love these tropes in books. I love them in movies. And I just really, really want to see these tropes more, especially in the books that I read. And if you find that you know any books that have these tropes, go ahead and make sure you leave a comment down below and let me know so I can, read them and add to my list. I will be recommending books that have the tropes I mentioned if I can think of any. And if I can't, then I will leave that up to all of you. But yes, before we get into that, I want to go ahead and thank today's sponsor, Book of the Month. Book of the Month is an online monthly book service that promotes new and emerging authors. Every single month, they curate 5 new and early releases in various different genres like fantasy, romance, historical fiction, and thriller. While the subscription is monthly, you can skip any month where you do not find a title that interests you. The first Book of the Month pick for June is a contemporary novel called Sky Falling. They say don't put all your eggs in one basket, but they never mention what to do when an egg walks back into your life. The second Book of the Month pick we have for June is Instructions for Dancing. Thanks to a life-changing book, a girl finds love and renewed purpose on the dance floor after her parents' divorce. The third book we have for June is The Maidens. This is a thriller novel from the author of The Silent Patient, and it is a gripping tale of murder, myth, and the horror lurking beneath the ivory tower. Second to last for June, we have Half Sick of Shadows. This is a fantasy that is an epic, feminist retelling of Arthurian legend. Sometimes you need a crystal ball to crack a glass ceiling. Finally, we have Malibu Rising. This is a historical fiction novel that follows the infamous Riva siblings over the course of one life-changing night. Those are all 5 of the June Book of the Month picks. If you are interested in any of them, don't forget to use the code chanelletime to get your first book for $9.99. I will also have the direct link to the Book of the Month website in the description down below, so make sure you check that out. Alright, let's jump right into talking about these awesome tropes. These are in no particular order. I just wrote them down and I'm going off of my list as I wrote them, but they're not in any order. There's no favorite at the top and least favorite of the favorites at the bottom. It's just randomized. But going into the first trope, I have the mean girl trope. I first fell in love with this trope when I started watching Gossip Girl, which is a TV show about these rich private school Upper East Side New Yorkers.
Hey Upper East Siders, Gossip Girl here, and I have the biggest news ever. One of my many sources, Melanie91, sends us this.
I was so obsessed with Blair Waldorf's character. She has the perfect mean girl energy.
Break a leg.
I think I just did.
And ever since watching Gossip Girl, I started really, really loving this trope. And right now, the only book that I can think of that has that trope, especially done the way it was done in Gossip Girl, is Ace of Spades. This book is a book that I'm reading right now, and I just feel like Chiamaka's character is exactly the type of mean girl energy where you hate her or you love her, and there's not really any in between. And as somebody who loves this trope, I am gobbling up her character. This book follows our 2 main characters, Chiamaka and Devon, who are both students at this private school, and some secret anonymous person starts spreading secrets about them and other students around their school, and they're trying to figure out who is spreading these secrets, who is the ace, who is the anonymous person trying to get rid of all the things that they have held close in their hearts for nobody to ever find out. I cannot talk about this trope enough. I love it so much, and I feel like it takes a specific type of character to really do it well, because you want the character who's not going to be just blatantly mean with no personality, that makes you kind of jealous of them in a way and also hate them but also love them. And I just feel like Chiamaka and Blair illustrate that so perfectly.
That is just chef's kiss to me.
Besides this and Gossip Girl, I have not found anything that does this trope perfectly. The next trope that I have is the tall girl X short guy trope, or the height difference with a feminine character being the taller person and a masculine character being the shorter person. I cannot explain enough how much I love and need this trope. In case you guys do not know, I am 6 foot. People always think I'm like 5'5", 5'6", maybe 5'7" if I'm lucky, but I'm a very, very tall person. And when I see books that have very, very tall women, I immediately am like, I don't even care what's going on. I love you, especially if their love interest is shorter. And I can only think of 2 books slash an anime like this. The first book that I have is The Sorcery of Thorns. This book follows our main character she's like a librarian. The books are alive and there's monsters in the books and stuff like that. And she gets accused of stealing a magical grimoire. And so she's trying to figure out what's going on, blah, 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 blah. I really enjoyed this book when I read it. I had some grievances with some of the characters, but I really, really loved and clutched onto the fact that the main character was 6'3" and the love interest was 6'1". Okay, that might not seem like a big thing because both characters are very, very tall, but I was still like, I love it here and I need more. The other book that I can think of, which is also an anime, is Lovely Complex, which is an enemies to lovers. There's also a friendship element. Maybe it's like an enemies to friends to lovers type of vibe. And then the 2 characters, the girl is the taller one and the guy is the shorter one. I believe the girl was like 5'8" and the guy was like 5'3", something like that. It was really cute. I really enjoyed it. There's an anime as well, like I said, and a manga. And I just really, really loved that, especially in an illustrated setting. I was like eating it up. I love it and I need more of that. I can't really think of any movies. I can think of a TV show, My Mad Fat Diary, that has our main character who is 6 foot and I think the love interest is 5'10", something around that. There's a difference there. I will probably put a picture to show you the difference. I really love that TV show. It's very, very heavy, so if you watch it, make sure you look up trigger warnings because there's a lot to do with body dysmorphia, eating disorders, things like that. But yes, those are the only 3 things I can think of that really had that trope. The next trope is one that I stumbled upon when I read a book that I didn't even think I would enjoy. And there was just something about seeing this trope illustrated in a book that made my heart just really melt. Even though I am a big fan of romance books and books with a lot of romantic themes in them, I really love the platonic soulmates trope. There's just something about seeing 2 people really love each other so much with everything in them, but not in a romantic way. The love, the soulmate energy, it's just amazing when they're just friends. And I really value friendships like that. And I just really loved it. And of course, now that you know the trope, you'll probably know that I'm going to talk about radio silence. This book just has that trope done so phenomenally because Alan and Francis are like best friends from the jump. They start working on things together and it's just really great when you see 2 characters who vocalize, hey, I love you so much with everything in me, and it's a soulmate friendship, not oh, we're in love, we want to date, we want to, get married, all of that. It was just precious and awesome to read about. If you don't know what this book is about, it follows our main character Frances, who is the head girl of her school, I believe, but she's like super smart, super amazing. She's one of those students who always does her work. She's just got it all going on, but she feels very out of place in her life. And she is really obsessed with this podcast called Universe City, and she starts illustrating, drawing some stuff, and the podcast host invites her to work on some designs and things like that, and she becomes friends with the host, and it's just amazing. It's so great. I talk about this book so much, so why did I even give a summary? Who knows? It's just an amazing book, and if you haven't read it, even after I've talked about it, even after Kat from Paperback Dreams has talked about it, even after all the millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of times that I scream about this book, you need to read it. That's all I gotta say. The next trope I'm gonna talk about is one that I know a lot of people are going to agree on because there's just something elite about this trope. There's something magical and wonderful and just so entertaining about this trope. And the trope I'm talking about is the grumpy sunshine trope. Seeing somebody who is a pessimist, sees nothing on the bright side, just wants to go about their day, finish their job, move on, doesn't trust people, is super skeptical, being paired with somebody who is just a ray of sunshine, sees life in a positive way, even when things go wrong. They're always looking for the next thing to learn, the next thing to do, the next person to make smile. My heart melts every single time. I can think of a bunch of books in different genres with this trope. The first one is Well Met, which is about a woman who moves to a small town because her sister has had an accident and she has to take care of her sister. And during that time, she ends up getting roped into working at a Renaissance fair with our love interest, who is just the grumpiest person in this small town. And they work together for the summertime, and it was just so wonderful to see these two characters together. The next book that I have is not really like a grumpy, it's more of the pessimist and optimist pairing, but that is The Sun is Also a Star, which, as you can tell, is one of my favorite books ever. I really love this book. It follows our main character, Natasha, who is a Jamaican immigrant whose family is being deported, and she has one more day in New York City. And then she meets our main character, Daniel. And Daniel is on his way to an interview for med school, I believe. And he's trying to, go to college, all of that. And they run into each other and they have one day together in New York. And it's just so fascinating seeing Natasha, who is a huge pessimist, and seeing Daniel, who is a huge optimist, kind of talk about the world and what the world is about and romance and love.
I don't believe in love.
So no magic, no fate, no meant to be. What if I told you I could get you to fall in love with me? Just give me a day.
I won't say more because I don't want to spoil, but I just really, really love this book so much. So if you love that trope, pessimist, optimist, whatever, you need to read it. It's so great. Another one that I have is Beach Read, which is a fiction that has romance. I don't really like to call this one purely a romance because I think it focuses more on the things that our two main characters are dealing with. It follows our two main characters who are in this vacation spot, kind of. Our main character, why did I point the wrong way, moves into, I think, her father's beach house, and she's trying to figure out how to get more inspiration for her writing. And she and the love interest decide to switch genres for some time to get more inspiration for writing. It's a really great book. It's a really good way to see the sunshine and grumpy trope in a romance setting, even though it's not fully a romance. But yeah, if you're looking for something that's fully a romance, I would definitely say Well Met. And then also Act Your Age, Eve Brown, which follows our youngest Brown sister as she is trying to figure out how to be a full adult and get a job, do things, further her life. And she ends up running into this B&B owner who is just literally the most grumpy person ever. But it's really great to see their friendship and romance blossom. So that's one. If you're thinking of one that's more of a fantasy route, I would definitely say The Savage Song, which is a YA fantasy where the characters live in a world where monsters are created when people do bad things. Or when somebody murders someone, a monster is created. There are 3 different types of monsters. It's really a great and interesting world. It's also a finished duology. This duology is going to rip you to shreds. But yeah, it has that trope because we have Kate, who is a huge pessimist and just hates everything and wants to prove herself as evil and cruel. I wouldn't say she's necessarily a mean girl, but I really, really loved seeing the pessimism in her character. And then we have the optimism in August's character and seeing him want to make the world better. So it's just really great to see the two characters in a fantasy setting. Those are a few books that I would recommend to anybody who is looking for a sunshine and grumpy trope in their books. Next, moving on to the next trope, I have the friends to lovers with a dash of second chance romance. What I mean by this is when you see characters who have been friends for a really, really long time and they don't end up working out, or something happens where their friendship kind of falls over to the side. They meet again, there's a second chance for them to fall in love, to be together. I really love that because I think friends to lovers oftentimes really requires a span of years because you really need to see their friendship develop. You need to see why they get along so well. A book that I can think of that has this trope is Gray Hair Don't Care. This book follows our two main characters who are in current time in the book in their 50s, and they have been friends since they were in college. So they were friends off page, and then in the book, from what I remember, we got glimpses of their college friendship and when they were learning about each other in a college setting. And then now in the future, we see them as 50 20-something-year-olds where they are, coming back into each other's lives because our main character owns a business, and then our love interest's daughter owns a business, and he is going to be working with our main character, and that's kind of how they reconnect again after their first reconnection a few years before. So it's like we see them in college, we see them a few years before, and then we see them in the present, and we see their friendship. We really, really get to see their love of music. Sometimes when books have cultural references or music references or things like that, I think a lot of people might have issues with that, but I think this book does it so well, because I literally was over here on my Spotify pulling out my Duran Duran playlist. I was living my best life. Moving on to the next trope, we have plus size athletes. Plus size athletes is a trope that I love so much because it squashes a lot of the misconceptions that people have about fat people, fat bodies, plus size people, however you want to refer to people with bigger bodies. I love this trope so much. So much, okay? And I can really only think about 2 books that have this trope done so well, so magically. And the first one is There's Something About Sweetie. This is a book I've talked about a handful of times in so many different ways. I've talked about the family aspect of this book, I've talked about the romance aspect of this book, but today I'm going to be talking about the fact that our main character is plus sized. And she is a runner, okay? As we can see from the back. We love to see it. We love to see it. I think she was a runner or a basketball player, but I'm pretty sure she was a runner because our love interest plays basketball. Anyways, I really loved Sweetie's character because while we do get the realistic aspect of people underestimating her because she is plus size, we get to really see the fact that she is such a great athlete, and the fact that she has a bigger body is not something that should ever stop her from being an athlete, and I just really love that. Really, really amazing. The next book that I want to talk about is actually a duology, and that is the Darius the Great is Not Okay duology, where we follow our main character, Darius, who is half Persian, and in the first book we follow him going to Iran to visit his grandfather and his family for the first time, and in the second book we are back in the US and he's going to prom and a bunch of other things in a relationship. It's really great. I love it. But this series, we have Darius, like I said, who is a soccer player. And he's a great soccer player. He's doing his thing. He's living his life. If you also want books that have depression representation on page, that discuss medication and discuss depression in a teenager as well as in an adult, this is the duology for you. I really, really loved this. I was like, oh my goodness, we have Darius, and then in the other book that I mentioned, we have Sweetie, and I just want us to have more. We need it ASAP. We are now on our last 2 tropes, and the next one I'm going to talk about is the girls or women in male-dominated fields. For this, I'm going to talk about When Dimple Met Rishi and spoiler alert. In When Dimple Met Rishi, we follow Dimple, who is going to a summer programming camp, and she wants to be a software developer. Really great, because you don't see that many girls, even though there are so many women joining these fields now, it's still overly dominated by men, so that was really great to see. And then we have spoiler alert, where our main character, April, is a geologist. If you really love Game of Thrones and fan fiction and themes like that, you'll really enjoy spoiler alert. And if you love books that have arranged marriages, then you'll really enjoy When Dimple Met Rishi. The last and final trope that I want to see more of, that is also one of my favorite tropes, is the hired to love or hiring someone trope. I don't know how else to explain that, but this one is completely different from fake dating because it requires some sort of transaction, some sort of pay, some sort of this is your job element to it, whereas fake dating is like, we're tricking your family, we're tricking my family, we both benefit from it in some way for the people we love or for the people we hate. This one is like, you're being paid, whether or not it's to pretend to be my boyfriend or to teach me something, stuff like that. And I have 2 books that I absolutely adore to recommend for this. The first one is The Kiss Quotient, where we have our main character Stella, who hires our love interest Michael to teach her about dating as an adult and things like that. And then we also have Rent a Boyfriend, which follows our main character Chloe and our love interest Drew. And Chloe hires Drew to pretend to be her boyfriend for Lunar New Year and also to, kind of get her parents off her back because they are trying to marry her off to a family friend that she hates because he's absolutely horrible. So yeah, these two books are wonderful. They were both 5 out of 5 star reads for me, and I really need more books like this. So yeah, if you have any recommendations for any of these tropes, please leave a comment down below so I can watch or read. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you stayed until the end, go ahead and leave me a pink heart emoji. Go ahead and leave that. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you again to Book of the Month for sponsoring this video. I will catch you all later.